our president, Ms. Amna Malik, Mr. Bilal Qureshi, who is a digital transformation leader, an AI mentor, and a tech entrepreneur. And we also have Ms. Anza Saqib with us. Ms. Anza Saqib is a digital expert, digital strategy expert. She's an alumni of National Defense University, and she provides consultancy on the subjects of counter-violent extremism, digital security, strategic marketing, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. So I welcome you all to the session. It's live on the Facebook, and the video will be uploaded on the YouTube as well. So we should formally commence our session. I would like to invite Ms. Amna Malik to present her opening remarks, and then we'll start the session formally. Thank you. Ms. Amna Malik.
Thank you very much. I would like to welcome Bilal Qureshi and Anza Saqib. Both are the future leaders, and I can say the tech leaders of Pakistan. And we are really thankful to them because they are giving their precious time and training for, especially for all our students. Mostly they are from different universities. And this is Anza Saqib's second course. We had a successful course earlier with Anza Saqib. And Bilal Qureshi, we know you very well, mashallah. You are a mentor on artificial intelligence and an expert in Fintech. So, today our session is the first level 1 session, and we would like to continue furthermore as well. So today, all the students are going to learn about artificial intelligence and its role in banking sector and finance sector and other corporate sector. And fintech is something which is changing the world, because in this new world economic order and this new normal, our lives are going to be changed. So fintech is going to provide a very important role. And here these two experts, they are not only good trainers, but they are also the mentors. They can provide the advisory services and consultancy to different financial institutions and organizations who would like to change themselves and learn the new requirements of the economic life. Before this session, I had a session with the Islamabad Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and there we were having interaction with Pasha and other government policy makers, that how we are going to incorporate all these things. So here the students, they are lucky enough, because Center of Pakistan and International Relation is not charging a single rupee from the students of this basic course. And we would like to encourage the student that they should study and they should find out new innovative business fields and their job fields, rather than becoming and entering into the typical business areas. So over to Bilal and Anza. My best wishes for all of you and both the mentors, and we are looking forward that this is going to be a level 1. So at the end of the session, we would like that you must tell the students that what would be your future plans of training and mentoring to them, and how you can help the corporate, because students are going to get the trainings, but we would also like to have some research work and some pilot project with both of you, because you are already into the field. So, combination of training and mentoring and having the practical experience is something which is rare in the market. So we are looking forward to work with you, and I would like to greet all the students who are going to get the certificates. But the students are so, they can't wait. They are so impatient. Then they ask, okay, this course is completed, please send us by email immediately our certificate. So it takes 3 to 4 weeks, because we are working on the database, and then we are having a system to send them their certificates after getting certain verifications that they have attended the complete course, are they serious. And then for the second level, we are also trying to give some scholarships to some deserving students, and also looking forward to work with these, best tech leaders, Bilal and Anza. So wish you good luck. Thank you very much, Uwais and Shujat. And Hasnain is not available today because the entire team contribution in Hum Sabka Pakistan. So, all of you are the leaders, and future youth is looking for you. And then I just want to tell you what is Hum Sabka Pakistan. It's the concept, it's a national narrative that we should all gather together to further empower as a nation, as a resilient Pakistani nation. And also we should also support and contribute that the youth is, it's something which is the potential of Pakistan. It's a national asset. So we need to empower this youth with the skill of IT, emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, and fintech. My best wishes for all of you, and goodbye to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'd like Ms. Anza Saqib to speak on this subject. Thank you.
Thank you. Amna Malik has always been very, very supportive of the youth in our country. And she is, women like her are definitely an asset for all the young people, because I know she's originally an entrepreneur and a businesswoman to have realized the importance of technology. I would say that she's a visionary, because I remember about 6 months ago, she spoke to me and said, I want to make some changes and I want to empower the youth with technology. And this was the pre-corona time, the pre-pandemic. So I would say that this is definitely a great vision for the future, because now more than ever we've realized what the importance of being digitally inclusive is. So I call this digital inclusivity. The world around us is no longer happening, it is happening. So it's like gone are the days when we used to just speak about ordering, or, going to the actual physical bank, or going to the supermarkets and getting stuff from there. Now the times have changed, so now it's all happening. And we, if as a nation, we do not become digitally inclusive in terms of our education, in terms of our e-commerce, in terms of our narrative building, then we are going to not be at par with the rest of the world. So, my dear students, even though this course, this particular certification is going to be focused on AI and fintech, um, let me remind you all to familiarize yourself and empower those around you. Whatever you learn from us today, please go and impart that knowledge to others as well. That's how you're going to bring about real change in Pakistan. With that, I'm going to briefly start with the topic for today. It's fintech, financial technologies. So the world around us has completely changed. You all, those who are born like after 97 or 2000, you all are now digital natives. So you're no longer just millennials. You are digital natives. You were born into this technology. So that means ever since you were in elementary school or you were younger, you held a cell phone, you operated a computer. So you are more aware of this technology than most other CEOs and senior professionals in the market. So you already have an edge because this comes to you naturally. However, what you need to realize is that slowly all the monetary transactions in our country, a lot of times people often, young people come up to us and tell us that, um, we are freelancers. We would like to do some work abroad. We'd like to, sell our services online. However, we are not aware of any digital platforms. We are not aware of payment gateways. How do financial technologies work? And it is sad, frankly, to know that a lot of people still are not aware of what financial technologies are, and a lot of old school people are too scared to even use like internet banking, mobile banking, phone banking more. So I think this narrative is also something that we need to change. Um, we all are intelligent, but now machines are becoming even more intelligent. We are going to impart that knowledge and intelligence that we have uh, to machines in the future as well. Artificial intelligence is what the future is all about. I wrote a research paper recently, and the topic was that how the seventh generation hybrid, the fifth and sixth generation warfares were hybrid warfare, modern warfare. And now the seventh generation warfare is going to be the war of the AI, right? So we need to be equipped and prepared. I'm going to pass on the mantle. I'm going to start and request Bilal Qureshi to begin with this very empowering topic and very interesting one as well. He's one of the pioneers of our country. I have attended his lectures before as well, and he's someone who's young but has achieved a lot in this young age, mashallah, in terms of artificial intelligence. He's one of the game changers in our country. So let's hear more from him, and then we are going to explain and explore some case studies as well. So over to you, Bilal.
Thank you, Anza, for your kind words. Before I start and share my screen, I would like to share my gratitude to Amna for taking this wonderful initiative. Mashallah, I think it's a great initiative to empower our young generation, because our future is basically dependent on the young generation. And why this drift to emerging technology is important is also to understand, because primarily there's a shift of material-based economy to knowledge-based economy. So I think it's a right composite why Amna started this whole initiative, and my heartfelt gratitude once again, and a warmest greetings to all the students who are tuned in to lecturing today. With that, without further ado, I would like to share my screen so that we can formally start on with the lecture. Let me just do that. I hope you are able to see this, Anza? Okay, good. So today the topic that has been given to me is primarily to do with AI and fintech. So we are to talk about artificial intelligence in general, but specifically in the context of fintech and its applications in the financial sector is what my main focus is going to be today. So this is how I've divided the presentation. I'll start with the introduction, because I think before we jump into understand the different tools and applications of AI, especially in fintech, we need to understand some of the basic concepts, because the clearer the understanding we have about those basic processes, the better place we will be to sort of decipher and understand and absorb these emerging technology tools. That is why I will start with the introduction. Then I'll move on to different tools that are being used in AI. So these tools that generally I'll talk about are not industry specific. These are industry agnostic tools, right? So that we are able to absorb what are the different tools that are used in the AI realm today across different industries. And then naturally, I'll filter that out towards fintech in my third section and move on to the use cases, followed by a conclusion. So first and foremost, I think it's very important for us to understand the evolution of the human age itself. So I'm sure most of you students must have read Homo sapiens and the history of mankind. So when we look at the millions of years ago, primarily we as human species were living in a hunter age. About 12,000 years ago, we started agriculture and agrarian age was on set, and it lasted a millennium. Industrial age started almost 150 to 170 years ago, late in 18th century, and this lasted for about 150 years. Information age started from 1950s. If you remember the not just the invention, but the widespread adoption of the computer era, the information era, is what basically transpired this evolution in the human age. Right now, we are in the cusp of yet another revolution, which is a transition from the information age to augmented age. And I think this is very important for us to understand, because as you can see, usually the transitions before this era were, dispensed in space and time. It took more than 12,000 years for us to enter and venture into the industrial age. It took us more than 150 years to venture into the information age. And it has only taken us a few decades to actually enter into this augmented age. And what do we mean by augmented age? This whole topic about artificial intelligence, emerging technologies, is primarily a representative, declaration of the understanding that we have basically ventured into the augmented age. From this, I will move on to a quick introduction where I would like to talk about some of the key concepts that are very important for us to understand before we start building our understanding further. So So when we talk about these emerging technologies, especially in our discussion today, we are talking about these emerging technologies in the context of a business, right? So we need to understand what is a business. Business is sum of all processes. Whatever business we talk about, it's not specific again to any industry, but in general, any business we talk about, primarily it is a collective sum of all the different processes within that business. What is a process? Process is a series of well-defined, tangible, and measurable steps that result in a consistent result or output that you are able to generate. So you establish a business with a vision, and to realize that vision, you formalize a strategy and undertake different processes. Those processes can be conscious or they can be subconscious. But at the end of the day, all of those processes are is supposed to dovetail in a way that they are able to produce consistent results which are compatible with the business vision. This is how the business basically functions. What are the business operations? Business operations is the collective data of all processes. So all of these different processes that define your business, and processes include HR, it includes supply chain, it includes operations, it includes customer engagement, it includes your product finalization strategies. So all the different, variants of the business is where we're talking about processes, and business operations is primarily the data of all processes. So now we hear these similar concepts, the digitization. We say we need to digitize right now. What does this digitization mean? It means capturing of data in electronic form. So you have these printed papers, you have these receipts which are manual. So once you start capturing those receipts and start to basically convert them into an electronic form, this process is called digitization. Now, if you were to pay attention, I didn't say scan the manual data. I just said recording and capturing in electronic form, because if you were to do a smart capture, you will actually do OCR, which is optical character recognition based, capturing of the data, rather than just scanned copy of the manual data. But this is important concept to understand. This is what we mean by digitization. Mostly when we are talking about digitization, we actually mean digitalization, because digitalization is very different from digitization. Digitalization is the linking of the data via automated processes. So all those different processes that we mentioned in the previous slide, which constitute the business as a whole. So if you are able to link and integrate those different processes and instill intelligence and automation, this is where the concept of digitalization becomes relevant. And this is what we mean by digitalization. Then you hear a buzzword these days, which is digital transformation. All the organizations are queuing up to transform themselves digitally. What does that actually mean? It actually means that a process to digitally augment and deliver value. It basically means that if there is an organization which already has its processes, which already has a form of digitization, and perhaps has done, digitalization in silos, but digital transformation lens will mean that you are able to integrate all of those different processes together and align them in a more seamless manner. So it does not mean you need to replace your ERPs or CRMs or CMSs. All it means is that you have a holistic view of your business as a whole, and then you transform it in a way where you are able to capture maximum value by leveraging both technology and methodology. So this is a staggered process of a business. Basically, I'm expanding more on this because, again, as I understand, quite a few of our listeners today are students, and students, one of the most important way to generate a wealth in the States is to encourage students and give them tools to become entrepreneurs. So they need to know how, what are the processes involved in a refined business approach. So you set up the business objectives. Whenever you're starting with a business, you don't just follow the glitter. You set the objectives straight. After that, you create a prototype. A prototype is called, in our tech world, MVP. MVP is a minimum viable product, right? So you create a prototype to justify and qualify if it is aligned with the objectives and if it is able to deliver the goals that you set for it to deliver. Then you validate the findings. So after you have launched your MVP, you try to, sort of revalidate the findings. How did the MVP perform? Did it perform according to your expectation, your objectives that you laid down, the goals that you lay down for the MVP to, and usually, in businesses, um, hardly there's a case that there's one iteration of MVP. You continuously improve, right? So that is why it is important to, sort of validate the findings that you have. Afterwards, what you do is that once you have, you're able to successfully find your mojo or your niche, you need to be able to make a system which is able to replicate at scale. So because whenever you launch a business, primarily it is supposed to support scalability. This is where the replication of the successful use cases becomes more efficient. And then primarily you conduct a general, rollout. So this is important in the context of the digital transformation, which sits as the core of the AI itself, which we need to understand. So digital transformation is the foundation of your digital, vision. And the digital maturity assessment has data as the critical component. I'll talk more about it as we proceed in the presentation. Datafication, digitalization models, this is where the AI comes in, because AI is primarily a tool. In fact, there are a host of tools that are form of the AI ecosystem, which becomes more evident and apparent once you have more data at your hand. The more data you have, the better place you are to form educated, analytics. And we'll talk about different utility of AI in further detail in a bit while. This is when you can re-engineer the whole process. So if the business already existed and it is to transform from a digital perspective, after you have done a due diligence of their existing processes, their data, their gap analysis, you will be able to re-engineer the processes, the existing processes. The change management is one of the key component here for seamless integration. On top of that, then the end modeling is the predictive analytics, where you're able to plot the journeys of your customers. You are able to analyze the level and ease of interaction at different data touch points. And in that way, it is a continuous learning curve for your predictive models and forecasting. I mean, your firm and flexible forecasting models are primarily dependent on the integrity of the data that you're able to generate, because as a consequence of the above steps. So this is again a straight pyramid and inverted pyramid for you to understand data digitalization needs and business values. I'll basically explain them more as we proceed in our presentation. So now I think we are well prepared to tackle the subject. What do we mean by AI? So right now, just to recapture, we have already understood what do we mean by businesses, what is the role of the processes, and what is digital transformation. Now is the time for us to learn artificial intelligence. From a definition perspective, AI is a technology that reacts to data or its environment. So like I said, AI is a tool of is an ecosystem of different emerging technology tools, including machine learning, computer vision, predictive analytics, data forecasting. We'll talk about these technologies in the later part of the presentation. But all of those tools basically react to data, right? So the more data points you have, the better equipped you are to deploy AI. The goal of AI was to find how to make machines use languages from abstract and concepts, solve kind of problems now reserved for to improve yourself. So what we are basically saying is that AI is primarily there to solve problems which humans are unable to solve at minimum amount of time. So we are not saying that AI is primarily prepared to replace humans to create new programs and create new approaches to solve problems for which they are not programmed to solve in the first place. What we're saying is that AI was created to make machines use language. Language is primarily the data points, the different ways we communicate with the data, form abstractions and concepts. So the AI tools capture those inputs from the languages, clutter them up, remove the noise, filter it out so that we have an data integrity in place, and solve the kind of problems now reserved for humans and improve themselves. So this is where the four doctors, which we call the four co-founders of this whole AI realm comes in. I mean, AI started in 1950 when Alan Turing proposed the first AI test, but it is these four scientists who basically wrote extensively in 1950s and 60s to demonstrate how AI can augment humans in so many different ways. Uh, so with that, we are to jump into what are the types of AI. So primarily, when we talk about types, there are two types of AI. One is a narrow AI. Narrow AI means the ability of a computer to solve a specific kind of problem or perform a specific task. So the AI system is basically accustomed and attuned to talk about a specific problem set, and that problem set is where they are able to drive most value. That includes, Siri, self-driven cars, and there are so many other ways. I mean, AI touches us in our life daily in so many different ways. For instance, if any one of you is going to find a way, a more optimum way to work, and usually there is traffic, if you put it on the Google Maps, you'll be able to see that Google Maps will be able to show you if there are any jams on the way. So we are using AI. Again, many of you are using your emails. So once you have those emails, and how does your spam folder function? How is the spam filtered out? Again, you're using AI, and there's so many other, languages. If we are to translate a speech to text, or text to other language, all of these different, tools that we use on a daily basis deploy AI. So that is narrow AI. The other type of AI is called general AI. AGI is also one of this acronym. It's an ability of a computer to solve problems it is not programmed to solve. So what we're saying here is something revolutionary, which is that artificial intelligence is in a self-learned environment is able to sort of solve problems that it was not originally programmed to solve. In other words, what we're saying is that there's a consciousness of machine, and this is, by the way, a key debate right now in the world. AGI does not exist today. AGI, where machines are, consciously and self-aware of their environment and making decisions independent of the programs which makes them function, is not something available in the world today. So with that, we move on to the transformational journey of AI. So Moore's law, I know most of you must have been aware of this. Moore, who was the founder of Intel, he says the Moore's law is basically the number of transistors in an IC were doubling every 2 years, and that we are talking about in early 60s. By 2004, the number of transistors manufactured surpassed the number of grains of the rice that were grown across the planet. So that is very important for you to understand. I mean, the grains of the rice in the entire planet, number of transistors were more than those grains because of the widespread adoption of the technology, including smartphones, iPads, laptops, TVs, you name it. Just 6 years later, in 2010, you can buy the same 125,000 transistors that cost about $1 million in 1960 for the same price as you would pay for a single grain of rice. So there are two important aspects if you're able to see here. One is the speed with which the technology has improved and doubled. The other is the speed with which the cost of that technology has gone down. So that has enabled the adoption and the innovation and the entrepreneurial advent a great deal, because again, the cost of producing the technology from $1 million has come down to virtually nothing, because I don't think we'll pay a penny even for a single grain of rice. So 30 billion data-driven devices are connected now. 30 billion data-driven devices. And that number is expected to rise to $500 billion by 2030. So we're talking about 500 billion in next 10 years. So you can look at the astronomical speed of the adoption of the technological tools itself. So 5,000 years it took from us, from abacus to iPad. right? So the speed of transformation again is another key aspect here. And the 25 years from now, we will have something so as far ahead of iPad as it is ahead of Abacus. So what we're saying is that the speed of transition from Abacus to iPad in 5,000 years and 25 years, you can see it for yourself. I mean, the first version of iPhone arrived what 2007, and you compare with the latest version 11 Pro. So there's a big difference, and it's both just 13 years we're talking about. So the technology is improving and adopting with an immense speed. So continuing with this, there are decades. Lennon famously said that there are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen. And this is exactly true. The reason I wanted to keep and retain this quote here is to demonstrate that if you can see the transition of the human age from the earlier ages to the information age took millenniums and decades and hundreds of years. But right now, in the age that we are living, there is decades are happening every other week compared to our historical learning curve. Computers compute, and computation is the heartbreak of the universe. It is the tick-tock of the cosmic clock. Why it is important to understand is that because the power of the AI is primarily determined and delivered from its ability to compute at scale, right? So this is why the cognitive AI will impact every decision made by 2021. This is Ginny Rometty, the CEO of IBM. So this basically was to set the context right, for us to understand for us to understand the key concepts, and for us to be introduced yet again to the artificial intelligence. Now I will talk a bit briefly about different tools that are being used within the AI ecosystem. I haven't tried to make this a very holistic picture. I will be talking about primarily 4 different aspects which cover different blends of technologies in between. The first is RPA, the other is conversational AI, the third is big data, and the fourth is integrated automation or hyper automation loop that we call in this space. So starting with RPA, so robotic process automation is the first exploratory step in the world of AI. All of the students of AI must know that, like I mentioned, for you to efficiently and effectively deploy AI tools within an organization, the first and foremost thing that you need to do is automate the existing processes. Because most of the business's processes are A, repetitive, B, manual, C, they are time consuming, 4, there is chance of human bias, 5, there is a chance of errors. So RPA basically is a rule-based automation. There is no intelligence in this automation, but what it does is that the bots replace humans. So the bots, which are software bots, by the way, the software bots primarily start acting as and they start mimicking human behavior, right? So they will be able to do parallel executions. They'll be able to do background executions. For instance, we are talking about RPA in this case. RPA can interface with a customer agent, and if a customer agent has to sort of read an email of the customer of the complaint and then filter it out and then share the data with a relevant department and spend time in that, all of that activity can be automated. So a bot will actually read the email, it will do the OCR on the email, it will translate and take those data points from the email itself and see the intent where it is intended, and then sort of clutter it to the rightful department. So the whole journey is evolved. I'll talk more about RPA again once we talk about the use cases, but this is the first exploratory step in the world of AI. Then there's a conversational AI. So this is, I think, we are more in tune with, because most of us use our mobile. So we have Alexa, we have Siri. I don't know if you've used IBM Watson or the different sites that you go, you see different NLU engines. This is what conversational AI comes in. Conversational AI is transforming how organizations are interacting with their clients, and not just clients outward, but inwardly also in terms of their employees. So you have these different applications where the customer experience enhancement is done via the conversational AI. So you can do your complaint registration, order fulfillment, engagement, service request handling, and general queries via the conversational AI. So there is no human required. A bot is trained on a particular problem statement, and it can be multilingual, it can be English, it can be Urdu, it can suppose Arabic. So you can train it on multiple languages, and the bot will basically manage the customer experience engagement vertical to a greater extent. This is the conversational transformation for organization within. What you can do is that you can use these different tools such as conversational AI for the recruitment. For instance, you ask for different CVs to be shared against a particular JD. In terms of humans sorting out those CVs, you can have your bots deployed who will filter out those CVs. So what you will be doing is that you'll be, replacing human biases from that particular process, and you'll be making the process more efficient. Employee onboarding, so employees cards, employee access, employees, system accounts, all of those can be automatically generated via this onboarding train, and then you can train employee via the HR bot. You can have annual assessments, which are again based on conversational AI. So conversational AI basically takes surveys in a more engaging manner, and where they're able to review performances on a quarterly, bi-yearly, or a yearly basis. And then you can have FAQs on company policies. For instance, even if you have HR and you have thousands of employees, and you want to automate the experience of your employees with the company itself, this is where the HR bots come more relevant, and HR bots can be trained on the company policies, on the leave policy, and stuff like that. Branding management, again, all these different businesses do have a footfall, a digital footprint. And how do you sort of manage the integrity of your brand is where, again, the conversational AI comes in. You can do upsell and cross-sell. You can offer personalized engagement experience to your, customers. The feedback loop is a two-way communication. So we're talking about a linear communication curve right now, customer profiling and sentiment analysis. All of that is primarily enabled via the conversational AI, which are basically also called chatbots. These are intelligent natural language understanding based chatbots that I'm referring to here. The third tool, again, over here is what we call an integrated hyperautomation. So integrated hyperautomation primarily is where we, in fact, also work in this space, where we are talking about R2R communication. So you have a intelligent bot. Here is a conversational bot, and then you have a rule-based bot or a dumb bot, which is an RPA bot. So they work and they collaborate with each other. So the conversational AI bot is able to take the get the intent from the user. It can be internal or external, and then that intent triggers into actions, which is performed by the RPA bot. And because of that, you are able to create a data pool, a data warehouse, where you are able to then perform big data analytics, right? So, and this is a quick summary of what we mean by big data. Big data is the most important aspect of the AI ecosystem. So we start with this, where we start with the data lake, and it's also called data warehousing. Then we mine the data. Again, like I said in the previous slide, so you are mining the data relevant to the problem statement. What sort of foresights you want to generate. After you have mined the data and you have ensured the integrity of the data, you have structured the data, then you are able to perform analytics on the data, right? For instance, we use statistical models. So data scientists, this is what their job is, to see the integrity of the data and what are the endpoints, data points that we're looking for, and then you use different statistical models to see what is the pattern in the data, and on that basis you're able to do predictive analytics, right? And those predictive analytics are then can be dashboarded. Visualization aspect again is one of the key aspects where we call, for instance, executive branch of any business or organization is more interested to see what is the churn, what is the business process outcome being produced out of that whole process. This is where the dashboards become more active. So this is a quick recapture of the AI tools that we just mentioned. We discussed IA, we discussed RPA, we discussed conversational AI, and naturally we discussed advanced data analytics. So with this, I will move on to AI in fintech. So in the fintech space, when we talk about AI, what do we actually mean? So for instance, first and foremost, we need to understand the industries, the financial industries in which AI and its ecosystem has a role to play. Of course, insurance is the first industry. So in insurance, you have AI and IoT, Internet of Things. They collaborate, they work in tandem with each other, and they aim to predict risk, right? So AI InsurTech is one of the, you have hundreds of companies around the world operating in this particular space and niche. And this is where what they're trying to do is that they are trying to see that what sort of a package these companies should be offering for various different insurance users. They will be looking at the health analytics, for instance, if it's a life insurance. They'll be looking at the past pattern of your driving history and your history of accidents or your credit scores to predict and see what is the risk that you have in terms of the vehicle insurances. And these are just mundane examples that I've shared. They are very complicated use cases. For instance, IoT is deployed for agri-tech. So if you are to insure your whole crop, so IoT sensors are deployed in the soil to see what is the moisture level of your farm, how efficient you are in your farming, if you're following precision farming or not, the yield of your crop is consistent with the energy industry average or not. So on that basis, you can customize your insurance product for those different crops, right? So banking again is the core heart of the finance industries, and they are one of the biggest users of AI and its ecosystem. So KYC is know your customer. So if you are onboarding any customer, the whole due diligence on that KYC can be done via AI. So an AI engine can go and search online, and there are multiple checks, by the way. So there are credit bureaus who have more specialized, inputs about any criminal record or on any civil pending cases, stuff like that. Or you can do a holistic, bigger parameter search to see if there are any controversies involved with the applicant. AML is anti-money laundering. So AML, anti-money laundering, is one of the key aspects which is being automated via AI. We are also working in this space, by the way. So basically what happens is that if you're looking to find the ultimate beneficial owner, or UBO, which you call, or if you're able to track suspicious transactions, this is where again AI comes in, where you're able to use different tools such as compliance engines to predict the case of any law breaking. Then you personalized customer experience is the key element, where what we're saying is that you have primarily different ways to customize that experience for the users, right? So if a person dials in from their mobile, so you enter into an IVR, interactive voice recognition, directory of the telephone itself. So that IVR journey itself should be customized to that person. So we're talking about hyper personalization, where it means that if a customer calls mostly for checking balances, or a person calls mostly to ask for new products, instead of giving the person the whole array of services that the bank offers, you customize and personalize that experience for that particular user, right? And again, that is one IVR example that I've given, only on the telephone smart queuing system. Apart from that, you can have virtual assistants, who augment that experience of any particular customer that you have. So capital markets, again, in another industry, capital markets, basically what we mean by capital market is, these security markets where shares are traded in Pakistan, like we have PSX. So you have these shares that are being traded. So AI is used to recognize patterns. In fact, we did a project for a US-based company where what we were trying to do was to create tradable alpha. So how do you produce this models which are compatible and are able to see, for instance, the past history. We're not talking about the black swan events, but we're talking about a controlled environment in which the variables are known. and those variables and then are then just placed and cluttered and predicted, upon which you are able to see a pattern, and then on top of that you're able to do data analytics. Wealth management, again, is one of the key industry within the finance. Wealth management means basically how do you sort of preserve the wealth that you or your clients have, because these are wealth management firms that operate in the financial space. So again, accurate forecasting, your investment decisions, your the due diligence process of the investment decision itself is automated in a way to instill more, visibility. Again, statistical models are being created. Asset management is and yet another industry representing financial sector. Again, here you have conversational AI and integrated automation. So these are five big industries within the financial space that use AI. And these are just some examples how it is being used to for your proactive experience, customized experience to identify the user based on previous saved records of the customer. You are able to handle more volume spikes. So if there is a conversational AI based or AI enabled IVR, it will be able to enable your automation of the business process and eliminate live agent handoffs. For instance, if you had operation traditionally, if you required 100, customer live agents, if you deploy the conversational AI-based IVR, you can eliminate that number from 100 to at least 50%. So tone and sentiment analysis again is very important. Why? By you can detect the appropriate tone of your customer and sentiment of your user query handled accordingly. For instance, whenever we are doing an analysis of the post feedback, quality assurance of an engagement with a customer, we try to see that how did the customer leave satisfied or not. This is where you can also automate this whole journey, which is the sentiment analysis. Again, you require cognitive psychologists to help you through the process, but you have the tools to process larger amount of data in compressed time. Conversational analytics, advanced NLU, I've already talked about. So AI in fintech, primarily, if we talk about these as different realms that are being covered. So AI is used in consultancy, in business analysis, in development of the applications, in deployment of the new systems, in system integrations, in general integrations, in maintenance and support. And again, AI experts resources are also augmented to support these different roles. To recapture it with the AI tools that we discussed, so RPA platform and RPA services are used. Autosphere is all native tool, but you have Blue Prism, you have UiPath, so you have other world leading tools also. AI, RPA, like I said, is used industry agnostically. I mean, financial service industry is the biggest adopter of RPA, but like I explained, RPA is basically active and relevant wherever there is primarily a need for automation of the process. It is actually the first exploratory step in the world of AI. Then you have this conversational AI. So you have IBM Watson, Azure, R2R communication. CARE is our product, which we have launched with HBL. Big data and dashboard analytics services include data mining, analytics, predictive analytics, and again, custom interactive dashboards. So RPA, just to briefly explain, some of the numbers are important for us to see, because whenever we are creating, a prediction, we need to understand what is the adoption rate. So RPA, more than over 70% of the finance organizations have reportedly started using or piloting RPA. And this is the global number we are talking about. RPA expected to have near universal adoption by 2023. So if you are able to, I will encourage all of your students to look at the Gartner, because Gartner is usually referred to as, technology is holy book, because you are able to see trends and map your, focus areas according to that. If you look at the Hyperloop from the Gartner for 2020, you'll see that there's only one, technology, which is RPA, which plateaus in 2 years, because the adoption rate of RPA is massive, right? So how does RPA work actually? Again, like I said, it is world first exploration in the world of AI. So you can use your business operations to automate and mimic human behavior, all right? And there are multiple gains that you'll be able to. You'll be able to generate productivity gain. You'll be able to save cost savings, because your full-time employees will be able to dedicate their effort into higher value activities rather than focused on the mundane and the repetitive day-to-day, stuff. You will get improved agility with faster and more efficient workplace. So there is no time bar. Bots work tirelessly 24/7 a day, flexible to scale up and down according to your needs, of course, error-free in execution because it is trained, it's rule-based, it is not prone to error until and unless there is a change in the rule itself. So again, error-free, ability to consistently comply. So if you require consistency in your operations, RPA is the way to go. Employee and customer satisfaction. Why? Because your employees will be able to dedicate more time in actually, tailoring the experience for their customers and managing them. This is what we call a high value activity, where you are building relationships, you are giving time to your customers and spending more, space in terms of increasing the customer engagement experience with your organization. And you will be able to eliminate, organizations are able to eliminate human biases via RPA. So this is what RPA is. I don't think I need to go into further detail, but these are different processes where RPA is suitable. So when we talk about use cases, primarily industry agnostic use cases are cross-function, finance and accounting. So basically, like I said, all the different verticals within the organization that have defined processes, those processes can be automated. I've taken one example from the financial sector to explain some of the use cases. Over here, I've used the example of capital markets, right? The capital markets, again, you're looking at account onboarding, you're looking at, transaction reporting, especially if there was a compliance, you have to do your KYC and AML compliance check about the reporting itself, that the money that is being used in that environment is clean money. And that is primarily for us, it is important because of the FATF regime also. Then there are multiple other, avenues that can be talked about. I think if there is more interest in this particular aspect about the use cases, then I'll dive in more while we venture into the Q&A session. But these are the different use cases: pre-automation, post-automation. So you are able to generate what usually took 15 minutes can be done in 1 minute. So basically, what we're talking about 150%, 15 times less time does it take. Basically, that is just one example that we have taken. So if the journey of your customer took 100 clicks per stock report, the system can be designed in a way to drop those 100 clicks to 3 clicks, right? So this is just one example of the tool RPA that was. Then there are chatbot integration. Chatbot integrations can be used to strong use cases. Platform agnostic hote hain. They are you have ultimate digital workforces. I'll give you one example, for instance. So if you enter into any organizations, this is just one mock that I've used here, but there are many smart apps right now. Most of the financial industries are co-opting those smart apps, especially banks right now have transformed themselves from being a banking institution with a software arm to a software company with a banking license. For instance, the CEO of HPL, and I'm talking about Pakistan example because that's more relevant to your environment, said that they are transforming HPL such that the HPL is seen as a software company with a banking license, because they understand the value in adopting AI and adopting technology as their core, right? So those different experiences of the customers can be enabled via these chatbot layers or conversation layers. And they are just some of the different findings that we are able to see, that more than 50% of the finders say they were able to save operating costs. More than 60% of the operators say their digital technologies help boost their productivity. 42% say they have improved overall productive quality. So what we're trying to say is that AI is having a significant impact on how business is connected these days. And this is why I wanted to talk about it in a bit more detail today. And we can primarily venture into more details in the Q&A session. With this, without further ado, I'll ask Anza to share her thoughts, please.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, Lal, that was a great presentation. I thoroughly learned a lot from it. Before we go on, there are a couple of questions that the students have, and I think that will just also break the chain of the presentation a little. Some of the students answered most of the questions that were here, but I think this one is particularly catered towards you. It says. We will talk about any specific programming language related to AI, like Python. I think the question here is the fact that students are wondering if there's only one particular language, like Python, which is used for artificial intelligence.
Okay, I think it's a good question. The reason I naturally didn't venture into the technical details is because we want to show what is the right composite of the class today in terms of do we need to understand the different composites of the layers within. But in terms of the languages, Python is just one of the language that is being used, especially to handle bigger data. It's one of the most stable code that you can write in Python. But it's not Python is a language, yes, but you use C++ here also. I mean, optimized C++ programming is one of the most efficient coding that you can use for handling real-time data feeds, right? And then you have TensorFlow algorithms that you use from the Google. You have R. You have so all of those different languages and tools are used to naturally create value. But today, I think the focus that we had in the discussion was to understand the conceptual outlay of the AI and how it is improving and enabling fintech industry. But if there are any more questions to understand the flow charts, then I can also expand more on it also.
I think another interesting question that I have answered from my side, but I think the students would love to hear your perspective as well, is the fact that a lot of these kids are wondering if we can shed some light into digitization versus digitalization. Told them that basically, students, you need to understand. I answered privately on the chat window as well. That basically digitization is when you're moving from physical processes, the physicality of things towards bringing them on software digital platform, and thereby improving those business processes. That's digitalization. I think Bilal should shed some light into this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you articulated your answer in a rightful manner also. But yeah, this is one of the most confusing things because you confuse these different concepts. Digitization is simply the capturing of manual data to a digital form, right? And this whole process does not even talks about the way you have digitized, because that can go a long way how useful the data is. For instance, let me give you an example. If you want to digitalize, which is to actually transform and enable and integrate different touch points within an organization, you need to have digitized data. So for digitalization, you need digitization. But if you have done digitization by just scanning the manual receipts and putting them in a digital folder, then you have made digitalization process far harder. For instance, if you were to digitize first instead of just scanning, if you were to use an OCR scanner, if you were to use OCR is optical character recognition, right? OCR, most of students must be aware of it. So if you use OCR to translate or transform that manual data into digital form, then it will make very easy for you to index that, because each letter in that scanned copy is separately readable, and then it makes it easier for you to correlate and translate, and then sort of index when you're doing digitalization of the record and create an archive of your invoices or something like that. So I think not just that the difference between the two, but also the relationship and dependencies between the two needs to be understood better.
Also, I think, Bilal, one of the other very interesting questions was that the students were wondering, so what is the relationship between AI and human behavior?
Hmm. So that is very interesting because
Yeah.
artificial intelligence is primarily is a bit of a philosophical question, to be very honest with you, because artificial intelligence, by virtue it being artificial, is artificial, right? So human behavior is again both a cause and an effect. So once we talk about an artificial intelligence, AI tools are programmed right now. So humans are actually writing those tools, writing those programs and codes for machines to perform in a certain fashion. But those are the architects, solution architects. What about those humans with whom that AI tool interacts? So on that, AI is having an effect. So there's one human behavior which is the architect, which is the cause of the AI, and then the effect is primarily on the recipient of that AI technology itself. And that is where the dependencies come in. For instance, if we are very dependent and become overtly dependent on making our day-to-day choices by the AI tool. For instance, if we are using health analytics, and we have an AI tool which is customized to our requirements, our needs, or nutritional value requirements on a daily basis, or exercise times and stuff like that. And we, instead of constantly thinking and critically analyzing the judgments for the data that is being shared by that AI tool, just follow it blindly and trust it that it is computing and taking into consideration all the different variables involved. Uh, this is where the effect comes in. So it has both an enabling effect and both, a sort of an impact where we feel dependent on the AI technology itself. So it's sort of a balance between the two.
Right, absolutely. Also, Bilal, I think someone has asked you, what is your advice for those who want to, any student that wants to pursue an AI career of fintech? Like in Pakistan, universities have just recently started AI degree programs. There weren't any before. So, what is the scope nowadays?
So scope, I'll strongly encourage every student to at least take one or two courses in data analytics and data science, right? Those who are more interested can pursue AI as a standalone industry itself, because let me tell you right now, the most in-demand skill set in the world right now, I'm not just talking about Pakistan, the most in-demand skill set right now in the world is data analytics, data scientists, data engineers, AI engineers, NLU experts, right? And this whole journey is actually being transformed in only last decade or so. In terms of the landscape in Pakistan, we do have an enabling landscape. We have many universities who have started to offer different courses, but I will encourage them for them to also have a look at the courses by Teradata, have a look at the courses by IBM
Yeah.
certifications, and those because those are the certifications that are universally recognized, and they will enable you better to sort of monetize your skill sets. There's also a program by Pakistan's President's Initiative on Artificial Intelligence and Cloud Computing. They've also ventured into this space and started offering some courses for past year or so. But again, they have to look at Teradata, IBM, Amazon, AWS trainings are very important also.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the student has asked, and this is a little off topic, but I think nonetheless relevant since we're talking about AI. One of the students has asked this question about, during the pandemic of the novel COVID-19 situation, experts predict that the number of cases in the upcoming days, they do it through using artificial intelligence. Could you explain this process a little and how it can be used?
So COVID-19, there are three different aspects. A, COVID-19 has absolutely disrupted the digital transformation itself. Overall, the organizations are more inclined and more open to basically change. That is the first impact that has happened. The question is more relevant to how AI has factored into this COVID-19 response strategy. So there are two
Yeah.
aspects. One is the data modeling. So these different Imperial University reports that we used to see, or John Hopkins University's data, consolidated data that we see, is again algorithmic. So what it means is that what they see is they see patterns. So there is an epidemiological study where they are able to see the hotspots spreading, and they are able to see different patterns and how the closer proximity of the population itself. For instance, if in Punjab the per populous distance is less than when compared to Balochistan, because in Balochistan you have larger mass and less population, right? So if there's more densely populated areas have a pattern or past trend of cases arriving more, you are able to see the multiple of those cases better. That is one aspect. The other key aspect, which I don't think many people are aware, actually AI is being used right now to cure COVID-19. So how AI is doing it right now is that, in the world, under 4,000 medicines are actually approved by FDA. Actually, 4,000 medicines in a nutshell. If you were to get any other, med approved, it would take, if decades, if not years and years, for you to do the research and do the safety studies to get that through. What they are
Absolutely.
doing right now is that they are trying, instead of creating an absolutely new drug, they are looking at the combinations of those existing different drugs, different chemical compositions that are being used within these 4,000 drugs, to sort of pair up and find a cure for coronavirus. And this is where the AI is being used. So AI, for instance, in London, there are three startups. Um, in fact, the University of Oxford, which is spearheading this exercise, is also focused on it, where AI is used to predict algorithms. What are the right combinations of the medicines that can work in tandem to resolve the disease of coronavirus? And then they filter it out. They further filter it out by augmenting and rechecking the data integrity, rechecking the parameters of the data set, and then they are able to find the rightful combinations of formulas. So AI is absolutely disrupting how we respond to COVID-19.
Absolutely. One of the examples that I was going to use would be that AI in the education sector, and I'm really glad that a student has asked that, because a lot of times now exams, I know, because I have been working in the education sector for some time now, and there are a lot of platforms that we are using. Some of the students are really concerned about the fact that there are no physical paper and pen exams that are going to happen. How will how will the system work? Will there be any monitoring, anything? That's where artificial intelligence comes in, because we worked with a new project on assessment prep, whereby, if you are all aware of the SAT exam, the standardized aptitude test, they actually used the data generated from all the responses to actually figure out the pattern and grading curve that was supposed to determine, the cumulative frequency of the A's and B's and C's that was there. So yes, it has a lot of implications in the future in terms of AI as well. Um, Education really is one of the education and banking, I say, are two areas which are heavily affected by AI. Another question, Bilal, is about AI and banking. How will AI revolutionize banking? I'll shed some more light into it as well. But
Yeah, so I tried to cover it a bit in my presentation, but overall, right now, you see that the banks are being transformed from being traditional to digital. So all that digital banking that has disrupted the banking landscape in the world at large, especially in the Western market, is where this transformation has taken place. This is where the fintech, branch actually evolved, using of technology in the financial sector. In Pakistan, let me give you some examples. So in Pakistan right now, there is no digital bank because the digital bank license has not been auctioned yet. But we do have EMIs. So EMIs are electronic money institutions. And this policy was passed last year. Some of the players that have already got EMI licenses include Naya Pay, Tata Pay, Finja,
yeah,
Kareem Pay.
I
So
will
all of
explain
these.
that in detail as well during the presentation. So we'll see
Okay.
some practical examples as
Okay.
well.
So yeah, I'll actually then park this question here because I think you'll be talking about that in greater detail. So banking operations, overall, like I said, banks are seeing themselves right now instead of banks as software companies with a banking license. So this shall tell you how this whole paradigm has shifted.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, let's see if there are any more questions. Let's take one last question and then I can begin. Okay, so this is one thing that a lot of students do often ask, and if I do say so myself, I've been trying to research in this area. We are in Pakistan an agro-based economy, and a lot of times I know a lot of students that have come up to me and said, "Ma'am, we want to do something revolutionary for the agricultural system in Pakistan. How can we employ AI for the agricultural reforms in our country?" So before Bilal shed some light onto it, let me just tell you about two practical projects that I looked at, and there were some students from NUS that were actually involved in the development system. Basically, I can tell you how they actually, there's this thing called soil testing. So basically, before planting any of the seeds, you do test the soil for instance, how much potassium it has, how much, acidic the soil is, and so on and so forth. What is the level of water? So the students use this with a simple drone technology, and they actually measured the area that were there on all the fields, and that really helped them cover a lot of area in a very small time frame. So that's one way that it can work. And the second thing is that in terms of recording the amount of labor, and Bilal has already shed light about how important it is to analyze data. So this particular project involved the productivity of all the human capital that was involved. So all the farmers, and they completely automated a lot of these processes. For example, even the account handling. So there's usually a concept of a munshi or a patwari who's actually writing things down paper and pen. And believe you me, it can save us. It can actually double the amounts of profits that we make. Bilal, would you like to shed some light on it as well?
Oh, certainly, because I'm actually working in this area also. One of the a project that we're doing of applying AI is in agriculture. In Pakistan, it's just a very interesting subject because more than 42% of our whole workforce is actually employed in the agrarian sector, and about 19% of our overall GDP, which is significant, around $60 billion worth of our actual GDP is driven by the agriculture sector. But the interesting fact, this is where the problem statement, instead of telling me, just expanding briefly about where AI comes in, we need to understand that one of the biggest problem statement that we are facing in the country right now is the use of the water itself. I mean, 90% of the water in Pakistan is used for irrigation purpose. And either
Yeah.
we have excessive irrigation or we have no irrigation. So either we have flood irrigation or we have drip irrigation. So all of those different types of irrigation naturally exist, and there's not one type fit all, of course, because there are different crops and different crops require different types of irrigation. So the problem statement that we wanted to look at, how can we conserve water? How can we, improve crop yield and enable farmer, small farmer and marginalized farmer, because more than 50% of the farmers in Pakistan are actually marginalized and small farmers because they own less than 4 acres of land. So we approach this from the technological perspective in a way where we are doing a pilot right now, and just starting off where we are actually deploying IoT sensors, IoT, which are self-powered sensors. Again, like you
Yeah,
mentioned,
Internet
soil-based
of
sensors to
Technologies.
get nutritional value. What we are looking at right now is to see the moisture level in the soil itself. So if there's a 4 acre farm and that farm is used for 4 different crops, for instance, so we'll deploy those different sensors in those 4 different areas. We'll have solenoid valves, water valves, again on the pipe itself, and or what we will be able to see is that which area of that farm is has less moisture or there's more dampness, and we will open the water from that particular valve. And if a crop is able to get the water when it actually requires, you are actually improving the nutritional value and the crop yield of that. And we are this is what you call precision farming. And this is the precision farming is where we are using our SCADA tool. SCADA tool is a control system that we deploy with the pumping station, and that control system is connected over the internet. It's a GSM enabled SCADA, and IoT devices or sensors share data with the central control system, and that central control system then operates and opens and automatically distributes water in a different form. So you have just enough water for these different. So you're able to conserve more water, you're able to improve your yield, and then moving onward, you can also use it as a water as a service to sell excessive water to the local.
Right. Thank you. I know there are a lot of other questions as well. But before we take those, I'd like to, just shed some light about some simple and, practical examples of where fintech was used and why it was used. I'm going to start sharing the screen. Can you see me? Can you see the screen?
Your screen has just started. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So now when we talk about AI and fintech in particular, I understand that from the questions that I read so far, I feel like the attendees are still a bit unclear about maybe they need to know in layman terms what financial technologies actually are. So first we need to understand the need for it. Like, why does a farmer in the villages need to employ financial technologies? So this is part of the new economic order, like we keep hearing about the new world order. So especially now post-pandemic, the need has become apparent. So three main areas. First of all, there is a need to bring costs down. Now we know that a lot of businesses went bankrupt, a lot of people lost their jobs as well, and during the Corona crisis, and a lot of businesses were forced to shut down their physical presence. This in terms of this needs to create alternate sources of generating income. So for example, if there is a physical store that is selling women's apparel, what do you do? How do we stop selling altogether? Is the person is his only ray of hope, waiting for the future and waiting for a vaccine to be found? No, you need to have that Kaizen philosophy of constant improvement, right? So all businesses of the future need to be digitally inclusive. So it's good to have a physical presence as well, but businesses of the future will not be able to survive until and unless you go digitally inclusive, you make your whole infrastructure inclusive. To give you an example, let's talk about financial payments. So all those people who had to, let's say, for example, pay their electric bill, right, or pay their, utility bills. What did they do? Did they sit at home or risk getting corona at the bank? No, they did not. I mean, those people who were technologically inclusive, like myself, all I did was, start paying through the app on my phone. So you either go digital or you go home, right? So that is the only way out in the future. The third reason is that time is money, and the clock is ticking. Now we can't wait to for some godsend intervention. We need to bring about the change ourselves in terms of coming about with creative solutions. So I hear this a lot of times where people say that, ma'am, Amazon is really limited. I'm a vendor, but I cannot sell my goods on Amazon. So you come up with your own e-commerce shop. So there are a lot of things that you can do. This is just going to give you a little perspective about where we came from where fintech began. So fintech, financial technologies were earlier only used by like the stocks or to, certain amount of commodity tradings and everything. But so these technologies, in essence, just were the enablers and the disruptors in the market. So for the first time ever, let's say that Standard Chartered came about with the Breeze app, which you could use for your phone. But what happens now, there were a lot of limitations to it. And the limitations were more like, you needed to have a stable internet connection, you needed to have certain infrastructure. So that gave rise to a lot of new a lot of new gray areas that needed to, a lot of new gaps in the market that could be fulfilled, right? So now you all are witnessing what are called fintech creators. So if you go to like countries outside of Pakistan, like I know once is a couple of years ago, I was in Malaysia and literally I saw this happen that there was a rickshaw driver and I paid him through a QR code on my phone to his phone. It's that simple. So that's how payments are going to be accepted in the future. This is what financial technologies of the future are going to be. So you make them accessible not just to all the big MNCs and to the banks, but to the common man. Now here are some of the mechanics of how payments and deposits work, right? And this was some work and some research that we've done with an international partner. Um, when you talk about online payments and deposits, right? How do you do this? So the few areas to note are that online payments are made through different channels. They're usually like one link or, for example, Shopify is a way to is a platform that you use for e-commerce stores mostly. So if you've heard of someone that has their own e-commerce store, then it's probably employed through Shopify. There's Point, there's Go Stuff, there's Store Hub. So all of these are like different platforms that you can use to drive about that economic change. There is a lot of, I don't know if you people are aware of the concept of drop shipping. Now, drop shipping is something that was quite disruptive a technology in the market. Now, what happened was that a lot of times when in terms of the e-commerce stores, so for example, if you are someone that is sharing that is selling like sneakers, like joggers, right, running shoes, if you are someone that's selling running shoes and then there is an e-commerce store, so a third party can become the drop shipping partner and all they can do is connect those two together, right? So you basically are going to look at the needs of the vendor and that of the consumer and link those two together. So you literally are the custodian of a lot of inventory and stock without actually having to invest in a physical go down or a container or so on and so forth. Another thing that's really important is, in terms of lending and deposits, a lot of areas are using this as well. For example, there is On Deck. For example, there's SoFi. A lot of students are also using these platforms for supply chain, for student loans, for real estate. I mean, these are all the areas which can employ the lending and depositing aspect of financial technologies. So what can financial technologies be best described as? It's the unbundling of a bank. So whether you're buying a house, whether you're paying your fee for, your child, or you have to pay, your rent, or you have to buy groceries, or you have to buy movie tickets, or you're flying somewhere, or, we'll explore some other creative aspects of financial technologies as well. It is basically unbundling what a conventional banking system does. So these are, you can see, I mean, these are all the technologies that we have available, but there are a million more, literally. A lot of us have heard about blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So this is unfortunately in Pakistan, you know, we do not have legality to encash any cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin that we may have acquired, and a lot of fraud is carried out like that as well. So if someone tells you that, oh, I'm going to pay you in Bitcoin in Pakistan, legally we cannot acquire that money. So you need to go through third parties, and there are other vendors involved and commissions. But there are a lot of technologies that can be employed, and I feel like this is where we need to step in and really push for this technology. One of the reasons that people say that digital money or Bitcoin isn't it has a lot of risks is the fact that there is no money trail that is available, right? So, for example, if you make a transaction to me, it is very hard for through Bitcoin. It is very hard for the financial institutions to actually monitor that transaction. Whereas through the conventional banking system, it can be done easily. A lot of students often ask me what is angel funding and how can we raise more money. So this is another area where financial technologies is used a lot in terms of angel investors and in terms of crowdfunding. So for those of you who know what crowdfunding is, so there are platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and Funded by Me, GoFundMe campaigns. Now I know of a lot of people who have raised a lot of money through these angel investor networks, through crowdfunding. Now, what is that? Now, that in itself is another disruptive financial technology because, say, for example, you're a student and you have come about with a new innovative form of a battery pack, right? And you do not have enough, you know, let's say you don't have enough security or you don't have enough collateral to show to the conventional banks to get a decent amount of loan, then what you're going to do is you're going to build an account on Indiegogo, Kickstarter, or GoFundMe, and then you're going to ask for those investments. So I have literally seen a lot of success stories. Like I'll tell you about this group of young students that I met in America. And their idea was so innovative because they were Muslims living in America, and they actually wanted to generate some funds for funding, an interfaith harmonious iftar for all the for all the people that were on the streets, right? So for all the homeless people, and they wanted to use the spirit of Ramzan. And all they did was, so they did not have an official company registered. There are only two students, and they came about with a very strong campaign and a message, and that's how they put this out. But a lot of times, you have to show that there is, sustainability in the project. So their initiative was more to raise funds, right? But most of the times, if you want to go for angel funding, about 90% of the time, you have to show that this is a sustainable project. So, for example, uh, whoever your angel investors are, they will expect your company to do well in terms of numbers, to make a profit. And it's literally done at the click of a button. So, for example, if you make a Kickstarter campaign, so let's say today someone decides to come up with a supposed uh, tracker on the hand, just like a Fitbit, that can track, if you what your oxygen levels are. Right now, we're using those oximeters for your fingers, but if someone wants to come up with, that tracker, then how are you going to acquire the funds? Then it's that simple. So you don't have to go through massive paperwork. It's just become that simple that you put out your ad on Kickstarter, and the person that is interested is just going to come, put in their credit card details, and that's it. They can, and I've seen Kickstarter campaigns where the initial investment is as low as $5. So that's another disruptive way in which financial technologies has really changed how funding and crowdfunding happens. Now, this is another very, very interesting area, which is called monetization through video games. I'm sure a lot of you play video games, right? Um, this technology in particular is something that is one of the transformative technologies of the future because a lot of times when we think of fintech, we think of things like, okay, so e-banking and e-payments and Dash Cash and Easy Pesa, but we don't think about the potential that there is in monetizing other platforms as well and what financial technologies are doing all over the world. These days, I know 18-year-olds that are literally just playing video games and using that talent to generate a substantial amount of income. Another example of this is a case study of Fluid AI, which doesn't have to do with video games, but the fact that this is something that was done by Barclays Bank. All right, it was a success story. So this is basically a platform that uses machine learning to drive decision making for a variety of business operations, right? And the best part about this technology is that it's literally plug and play. So you do not need to invest in like a very expensive CRM or something for your business, or like an additional software. So it's actually plug and play, and it uses. So basically, they started using this in their kiosk machines and like virtual ATMs, and it created that sophisticated virtual customer assistance for firms with a physical presence. So all those kiosks did was it eradicated the need for having all those people that were there behind those kiosks, and there was just a kiosk. And what they did was they used motion sensitive cameras to really detect the facial expressions, the gestures of the people standing in front of it. So if I'm someone who's gone to Barclays to apply for a loan, then my credit assessment, my loan, everything would be assessed by the gestures and facial expressions that I have on through that one kiosk. So this is something that is going to speak to the consumers. It's going to really put the digital environment and AI together in terms of financial technologies. It's going to connect the two. So, this was another brilliant example of a case study. Now, when we spoke about, e-games and esports, let me just tell you, this is a leaderboard and of some of the players that were using financial technologies, right, and playing video games. So I know all of you play Fortnite, and this was basically how a lot of people generated, a source of income, and you can see the amount of prize money that was there. So there are people earning in billions from these, esports teams, and how they earn is so they either earn in Bitcoin, or what Sony is doing now is that now they're investing in their own financial technology. So it's going to be their own gaming currency, which you can encash in your own conventional banking system. I would like to end with the potential that Pakistan has for financial technologies. So we spoke about a lot of payment gateways and stuff of the future, and like Bilal had shed light into Finja and Telenor Microfinance Banking. We've got UBL Omni, we've got Connect. But now, what happens with technologies like, let's say, which are not just conventional apps like the Standard Chartered Breeze, which, by the way, now you can even work with QR codes. So literally, if you have to, let's say you're eating at a restaurant, then all you have to do is take the app, and I'm going to show you a practical example of this. So this is the Standard Chartered app, and all you do is you put in your login details, and you're going to put your smartphone in front of the screen where your vendor is or where the restaurant is, and that's how your payment is going to be deducted. So there's no need for carrying any cash. That is something that most of us do not want to do for the fear of the COVID-19 situation these days. So that is one technology. Another thing that is happening now is that for those of us who do not have access to even, let's say, data or internet, and I know this because this is the technology that we helped a lot of artisans in the villages with. So there's a village called Mirpur Khas in Sindh, where there were ladies in the village that were making handicrafts, and they really needed a system, a financial technology. However, there isn't proper connectivity in that village. So what happens then? How do you empower those women? Are they just going to be, sitting stagnant for the rest of their lives? No. How you empower them is, so because there are no cell phone signals, there are payment gateways and there are methods that are available. The technology that they are now employing is the fact that you don't even need internet. you are literally going to be using your phone and regular mobile signals. That's all you need. So you're going to get a code on your phone, and that's how your money is going to get transferred. And you can literally make payments. So there's like a list of for example, if you have to pay a utility bill, then rather than actually owning a bank account in Standard Chartered and having mobile banking and internet banking enabled, all you need to do is subscribe to that service. And there's a list of utilities. So for example, if someone needs to pay their gas bill, then you literally dial two on your phone, send it across as an SMS, you dial the amount of number, and it's how it gets paid. So my dear students, this is what the future of Pakistan is, and financial technologies are. We didn't realize how much time had passed. I'm going to save the last 15 minutes for questions, but before I do that, from what we've assessed throughout, today's session, I think it's apparent to us that a lot of these students still need to learn about some of the basics that are related to financial technologies and artificial intelligence. So the next course that we will be conducting would be to separate the two, right? So we will do a separate one on AI and its implications, like throughout. And I would request Bilal to again be a part of it, and we can explain to you in greater detail. And I think an interesting area that we would like to conduct a case on, another session on, would be AI and its implications on emotions. And I keep hearing 2-3 students talk about dehumanization, right? So dehumanization and artificial intelligence. I know a lot of you are afraid of employing artificial intelligence because a lot of you think that, okay, so robots, there are a lot of conspiracy theories that robots like Sophia, I'm sure all of you are aware of who she is, are going to take over the world, and we will no longer be emoting our human side to the rest of the world. And this is just a fear. Don't worry, nothing of the sort is going to happen. In fact, artificial intelligence is now being used for a lot of transformative technologies, and maybe that is one of the sessions that we can carry out as well. Transformative technologies. What are transformative technologies? Let me show you a live example. There is this app called, let me show you. So has anyone heard of the app called Calm? Now that is for mental health and wellness, right? So there's this other app called Nebo. That's another app that you can use. And another one that is used primarily for transformative technology is an app called Wobot, right? So Wobot is this app that's literally operating through your cell phone, and it is used for this disruptive transformative technology. I'm going to give you a little sneak peek by showing you what this app can do. So mental health awareness is something that is a need of the future, right? So we're going to just see a little demo of who bought this, right? So let me try and do this. So for those of you who are interested in AI, this is going to be a fun experiment to do at home. When you go home today, download this app. It's called Wobot, and this is how it works. So if you're stressed or whatever, so this little cute thing is called a Wobot, and we're working on a similar app for Pakistan. So what happens is that you can actually talk to this AI system that's there. So you're basically talking to Wobot about how you feel for the day. So there are a lot of these meditation exercises that you can do, and Wobot constantly checks on you. So for a lot of people that were overwhelmed or stressed out or felt alone, this is a great positive use of artificial intelligence. And so the responses that Wobot records from you, it saves that data to analyze the kind of mood that you're in. So you can literally, and I don't mean to scare you all, but you can literally predict, uh, what that person is feeling today. So if it's based upon your data and your preferences and your entries, Wobot will be able to predict what my mood is going to be like tomorrow, or these are, the aggressors for my day. So, it really helps someone transform their behavior and get rid of habits as well. So with that, I think I'd invite Bilal to join me one more time so we can take some of these questions. Right, Bilal?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. So I think another one of the questions that the students have asked is, okay, so there's a bit about dehumanization. And yeah, how can we use AI in electrical and solar systems?
In electoral education system, you meant?
Yeah, basically the question that the student Ubaid Ahmed has asked is, how can we use AI in electrical and solar systems? I think basically what he means to say is that in a lot of solar panels these days, there is a technology whereby, I've seen this happen in England. A lot of, the utilities are provided like that, whereby through Alexa, which is like a home automation system, that records the time in and time out of the people that are going in and out of the house, and that on its own programs the use of electricity. So for example, if they know that, for example, Bilal is not going to be at home from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., then the system is in itself going to switch off all power in the house, and that in itself is going to help you save a lot of money, cut down costs, save energy, right? And would you like to shed some light onto it?
Yeah, let me also add up. So there are two aspects to it. When we talk about AI for solarization, primarily what we are talking about is that for the big plants, for instance, industrial plants, so 1-2 megawatts, there are 2 to 3 different applications. First application is how do you sort of improve O&M? So operations and maintenance can be improved via the robots, because AI is the computational engine. Robots are what makes things happen. So for instance, one of my arm, by the way, is renewables. So in that, what we do is that the 1.5 megawatt project that I'm deploying in Lahore, we have added a robotic layer on top of the panels. So if there's a portrait panel of 3 lines of the solar panel itself, so we portray the self-cleaning autonomous robotic system. What it does is that it operates independent of any power. It has rubbers. It does not require water to clean the solar panels. So you need to clean the solar panels if you want to, maximize your energy outputs, right? That is one use case. The other use case is primarily around data analytics. What is the consumption pattern, like you mentioned, Anza? So if we are talking about a bigger scale solutions, what we are saying is that okay, so if you have a storage solution, you can smartly play around the on peak and the off peak time. So on peak time is more expensive electricity, right? So what you can do is that you can discharge the electricity via the solar if you have a storage system on the on peak time. So thereby you will be consuming less grid units which are more expensive, and more already Pakistan has a policy of net metering. So but those units are net metered against the off-grid rates, off-grid units of the project itself. And the third and fourth I mean, what you can also do is that you can use AI if you have multiple sources of energy. So what is the most levelized, what is the most efficient levelized cost of energy per unit you are able to get from multiple sources? You can again use the predictive algorithms, you can see the load bearing algorithms, and you will be able to sort of shift the load from one source to the other, controlled via IoT.
Yeah, absolutely. Bilal, there's also another interesting question where the students have asked, where do you think AI will be in the next 5 to 10 years?
So yeah, I mean that's an important question because students need to understand the way and speed in which AI is expanding. So we're talking about 18 to 20% of the job market right now as it exists today to be actually replaced by AI, right? So that can be seen as a perspective maybe that there's a race between AI and human employees and AI is taking over human jobs. That's not really the case because this sort of transformation has already always happened. For instance, before the cars, we used to have a cart rider, right? So that cart rider was replaced by a driver because the technology evolved. Similar is the case with lift. So you in 1950s and 60s, primarily you had those, lift boys, lift person who will press the button, jack it up and go. Now that is replaced by just one button, right? It does not mean that that person has become obsolete. What we need to do is that we need to evolve with this transformation of the technology itself. So when we were growing old, we were being told that the more specialist you are in a field, the more specialized, skill set you have, the better chances you have to, sort of retain and maximize your earnings. But that is not really the case right now. Actually, it's the other way around. So, for instance, let me give you an example. If you're a radiologist and you basically have a very special job of looking at those x-rays and finding out the different patterns, what do they do those x-rays mean, and now you can train an algorithm, you can train a machine because the possibilities are narrow. So radiologist is a very specialist field. Now you can train AI to basically form far more efficient, error-free, and timely calculations than a radiologist would. And this is something that is happening. There's a startup in Pakistan also who have started working on the breast cancer and how it can be detected in the earlier stages and where algorithms are being used to use that. In UK already it's highly common. So what I would say here is for you to plan your careers in a way where you are increasing your productivity and focus on more creative issues because we don't see AI replacing screenwriters.
Yeah.
We don't see AI replacing artists, or we don't see AI replacing those activities which require conscious awareness of your
Yeah.
environment.
Absolutely. There's been one question that I wasn't really expecting. How can we use AI in judiciary? This is something that has been an area and an interest of mine as well. Well, for those of you who studied law, like I have, a lot of times you need to know that what the role of judges is to at a certain data set, right? Look at the facts of the case, right, and then give judgment based on previously existing case law. So, right, whatever is in the book, they're going to interpret it according to the facts and then make a judgment. Right? And there is the amount of information is very tangible. Like for example, there is case law that exists. There is for example, the statutes of the acts of parliament that are there. So, for example, if you are talking about financial technologies, then prevention of crimes, electronic crimes, that act that's there. So, for example, it's a very interesting area because machine learning can literally allow programs to analyze a set of data and then learn how to make these predictions or decisions, if you may, based on what was learned. So, for example, whatever the judges used to do, especially for let's say like summary only crimes, or for example like in civil cases. So for example, if someone has broken a signal, then it would be very easy, and it would really make the judicial system way more effective, paying of challans way more effective if we if we make the process much simpler, which we can automate. So, for example, one way that I look at it is, so if someone has a traffic violation, then rather than going to a magistrate, or rather than going to one of the centers and having to go physically, do some paperwork, it should be that easy to just pay your challan online and maybe, look at the facts of the case and perhaps pass a judgment. So that is my take on it. Let's hear what Bilal has to say.
Yeah, I mean, this is again one of the very important areas, and this is where I don't know if you have followed IBM Watson. So Watson was
Yes.
actually trained on the judicial legal interpretation of the different judgments. So there are multiple use cases. We have identified a couple, but most of the applications of AI in this particular field are as follows. For instance, standardization of cases. So you have all those different judgments. So in legal fraternity, the law you follow is called the law of the precedents, right? So if you are to follow precedents, you need to know, I mean, either you have to study all those different cases, remember the names and the context and the circumstantial evidence in which that judgment was arrived at, and was it upheld in the superior judiciary. So it's all the data that you have, you structure up the data, you standardize the data, and then you have lawyers who do not even know to memorize the case
Yes,
names
they don't
anymore.
need to
What they can do is that they can either just mention the subject or the context, and because you have smart indexing of those archives that you have of past case judgments, so you can actually literally automate the whole precedence experiences. So that is just one application. The other application, like you mentioned, yeah, Anna, you want to say something?
Yeah. Please go on. I was just going to say, Bilal, after this, we are going to take the last two questions, which I've already shortlisted. So, for those students who are still typing, you are more than welcome to email us, or maybe a good thing would be to keep in touch with COPAIR, write to them, and ask them to tell them about your areas of interest, and maybe they can formulate the next course based on your areas of interest. And
Yes, Ms. Hamza, we have already made a Facebook group where we will add both of you, Mr. Bilal and you, and all the attendees of the session, and they can ask a question they have.
right. So Bilal, there's sorry to cut you off, but the second last question, I'm going to revert this to you completely because that's not my area of expertise. But students of engineering are asking, what is our future if engineering students, if they want to emerge themselves in fintech? How can they use their skill set?
Yeah, so if they already have an engineering background, they already have a plus, right? So engineering background means that they already have that, logical thinking flow, right? So this is exactly about it's not about having a specialized experience in the mathematics or the statistical models or how specialized you are in making unique models out of the data that you have. Actually, all it requires is an inquisitive mind. And you're able to follow a logic flow of thinking. So, for instance, if there is an engineer who is a mechanical engineer and he or she wants to transform their skill set and incorporate a learning of the AI itself, they can simply take different courses for data analytics. Data analytics is primarily about seeing patterns beyond the subject itself. So AI engineer is a more specialized job. AI engineer will require an understanding about the computer vision, will require an understanding about the NLU principles. All of those different IT students that we have right now, around 325,000 IT students we have in Pakistan right now, they already are well prepped to specialize in those, coding specific branches of the AI. But for those who do not have a background in coding, or those who do not have a background in IT, can still evolve by absorbing into the data analytics course. AWS certifications are very important. I would strongly encourage them because the world right now, we are all of these machine learning, deep learning, neuron systems, or computer vision systems that we talk about. They require huge computational powers, and these computational powers are actually provided on the cloud right now. In the cloud, there are two big clouds, AWS or Azure, right? AWS by far is the biggest in the market. And AWS certifications are, again, not that difficult. So there's a week, 2 weeks certification regime. Students and AWS actually encourages them to do that. And there are so many different variants of those certifications. You can be a system operation engineer, you can be an architect, you can basically just focus on migration from on-site to cloud migrations that are taking place. This is again one of the most sought after skill right now is of a developer in the AWS space. In fact, in this point, we have partnered up with a company in UK based on who are the master trainers for AWS. So one of my vertical is actually offering those specialized training regimes for startups and students so that they're able to understand AWS infrastructure and how to sort of inculcate that. So again, just to summarize, if you do not have a background or majors in IT, there are still quite a few, dimensions within the AI ecosystem itself that you can, sort of specialize in.
Right. Now, with that, Bilal, I think we're out of time. So, the team where we'll revert to some questions to us as well. Thank you so much for your time, Bilal. I think the students had great, enriched learning experience. And thank you to the team at COPAIR. We had limited amount of time, and obviously these aren't things that we can teach you in just one session. So hopefully, we hope to see you all again whenever we plan the session. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amna, and the whole team.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your short insight and reflecting upon the topic. I guess this have been a very informative session for all the students. I thank you, Ms. Hamza and Mr. Bilal Qurashi. Thank you very much. That's all for today.
Thank you.